Is suing those accused in the college bribery scandal.
Her class action lawsuit is asking for $500 billion.
Wow.
Here now to break down the civil issues facing the people and the schools involved, Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
So we were thinking $500 billion sounds like a ridiculous number, but maybe it isn't given the circumstances. Explain that.
Well, it's a headline grabber for sure. That's billion with a B, and that seems a little excessive. But that's one of the things that, that's why we have courts of law, and that's why you have to make a case before you're able to proceed. One of the biggest challenges to some of the people that are involved in wanting to bring lawsuits like this is standing. In other words, they have to show how they personally have been affected. So this mother's claim, as an example, is that these kids that got in through the side door, not the front or the back door, took a seat away from her son. But how do you prove that? And that is going to be the challenge, no doubt, that a lot of parents are facing who raise their kids to learn the value of hard work. So understandably, the emotional heartstrings involved in this lawsuit are very strong. We can all relate to that, but it's a different standard when you actually get into a courtroom. How can you prove what you need to prove to be able to be entitled to that kind of money?
This mother already suing the actresses of Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and others in the case. More than 1 million people, from what I understand, can also join this class act. That's a lot of people, Wendy. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, but and each one of those are going to have enough standing to be able to join a class like that. It's kind of a novel issue. Obviously, now we're in the position, you have these students that have basically not paid to play, but paid to not have to play. Remember that a lot of if you don't play the sport, you can't very well do well on a team in college, or if your admission tests have been changed, you're now in a position where how do you right those wrongs? So is it just money? Is money going to solve the problem? What do we do with the students that have been admitted that honestly had no idea that their parents were participating in that? Is it fair to basically penalize them? What if they've already earned a degree? Remember, this started back in 2011.
Some of them already have.
Do you take the degree away from them? What does that depend on? Here's the answer so far. Universities are looking at it on a case-by-case basis. But tying into this major lawsuit that we're learning about, is that going to solve the problem? Is it all about awarding money? I mean, wasn't money at the root of the bribery to begin with? Are we going to go full circle? Or is there a better way to level the playing field?
Yeah, a lot of these schools are doing their own internal investigation. I know Yale yesterday started their own. So the question here, the schools themselves, they have a lot of money. They have big bank accounts, these schools. Do they stand a big risk of losing a lot of money in civil lawsuits? Again, you're saying, oh, it's difficult to prove. Would my kid have gotten in if the other guy didn't? But how big of a risk is there? How much of a threat is it to these schools in a civil suit?
It's always a risk, and obviously none of the schools themselves have been charged, and there isn't any evidence that they were in on it. But remember that that's something that some of these parents want to prove, is they basically might make the argument, and this is just, probably a good amount of speculation based on others' lawsuits. Well, if you're employed this person, don't you have the oversight that might be necessary to be vicariously liable? Now, the universities will say, we had no idea or any reason to believe that this is the way that some students were getting in. So could they ultimately face liability? You can imagine that the parents and the lawsuit's going to go after them because, as you say, Raul, that's deep pockets. But will they ultimately be responsible? That's a factual issue, and they're going to fight back with everything they have as well.
Oh, boy. I have a feeling like every time we're talking about these things, it's like it's just the beginning of what's
tip of the iceberg. Oh, absolutely.
Tip of the iceberg on something like this.
That's for
Wendy
sure.
Patrick, thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your expertise as always. Still ahead.